Today I will show you how to make a car rig that's reacting to any bumpy surface you can imaginate. We'll use in this tutorial this car model provided for us by UC21035. Thank you. Link in the description if you want to use the same model. I joined every car component in one object and every wheel component in one object. With that said, let's get started by creating a plane underneath every wheel. Select the first wheel, Shift S, cursor to selected, and Shift A, mesh plane. Press 1, J, Z and put it here, just underneath the wheel. Select this, Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A, mesh plane, J. Now let's parent every wheel to its plane. Select this and this plane, Control P, parent object, this and this, Control P, object, this and this, Control P, P, object. Now let's make every plane instancing from vertices. By selecting it and go into Object Data, Instancing, Vertices. You'll notice that it creates a wheel for every vertices. If I subdivide this plane more, it creates more wheel. We can make it instancing from faces, but it prevents us a problem later on. Because what we will do, let's do that. Select the plane and go to modifier and shrink wrap. Make this bumpy surface as the target and near surface point convert it to project and Z. Now if you move this plane along the x-axis, you will notice that the wheel is dancing. Maybe if we see it from above. Let's see it from above. Now if we move it, you notice it's dancing like this, and we don't want that. For that, what we want to do instead, we go into Object Data and Verts in Instancing and tab to go to Edit Mode and Alt M at Center for merging all of the vertices of this plane to a single one. Now if we press Tab, the wheel is perfect now. If we press 7 and move it, J, it's perfect. But if we see it from side and moving it along the x-axis, you notice it's reacting to the bumpy surface. And that's what we want. Now let's get this technique in every wheel. Select this, verts, modifiers, shrink wrap. Let's get that as a target and near surface, convert to project and Z. Now let's get tab, Alt M at center. Do the same, instancing from verts, shrink wrap modifier. Now we have 4 wheels that react to the bumpy surface. The real wheels is down here, it's still here, they still here. But this technically is the plane underneath it. Everyone is one plane. You can notice this here in the outliner. If you select any one of these wheels, it selects a plane. Now let's parent these wheels to an object and see what's the result. Let's select all the wheels, Shift S, cursor to selected. Oh, one. Shift A, mesh, cube. Let's go to Object Data and go to Viewport Display and convert in display as textured wire. And now let's press Tab. And now let's make every wheel parent to this cube. Let's select this and Shift select this and Control P, object, this and this, Control P, object. What we do basically is parenting every one of these wheels to the plane underneath it and parenting every plane of these to this cube. Now let's press 1 and move this cube along the x-axis and see what we have. J. Now we have wheels that react perfectly to this bumpy surface like this. Let's make the same thing to the car body. First of all, let's create a plane for it. Shift S, cursor to selected, Shift A, mesh plane. Press 7, Z to see its wireframe and tab. It's important to never mess with this plane in object mode. It's very important. If you mess up with it in object mode, you better press Ctrl A and apply the scale. Now press tab and make every vertex for this plane underneath one of these wheels. J. Remember, don't mess up with this plane in object mode. Tap back to object mode, press 1 and move it underneath these wheels. like this. Now let's parent this car body to this plane. Control P and objects. Let's make it instancing from faces this time. Go to object data and convert instance into faces. Now if we apply a shrink wrap modifier to this plane, make this bumpy surface as a target, convert near surface of point to project and press Z. Now let's parent this plane to this object. Shift this object and Control P and object. Now if we go back to solid mode, press 1, and if we move this cube, you notice that the car is reacting to the surface, but it's offsetting a little bit to the front. We don't want that, and I don't know why. So let's select this car and drag it back a little bit. J, like this, and now everything is okay. Let's select this cube and J, like this. It's perfect, and that's what we want. If you want to make this surface more bumpy, no problem. Select it and the displace modifier, make the strength 2 for example. And now if we select this, press 1, J, it's reacting perfectly, and that's what we want. Now everything acts the way we want, except the wheels are not spinning. For make the wheels spinning, we will use drivers. And don't be scared from the word drivers. Even me, I never used drivers until few days ago. And we will use it in very simple way. We use drivers on the property that we want to affect. We want to affect the rotation of these wheels. So let's select every wheel and press N and go to rotation. What axis we want to affect it? The Y axis, of course, because we want it to spin like this. If my mouse lets me do this. Let's go to Y rotation, right click and add driver. Go to object, select the cube, and we want the X location of this cube to affect the Y rotation of the wheels. For that it's perfect here, and we don't want word space, because if we let it word space like this, if you turn around the car to the opposite direction for example, it will spin the opposite, and we don't want that. Convert it to local space, and now if we move this along the x-axis, you notice that the wheel is turning like this, and that's because it needs to apply the rotation. So let's press Ctrl Z until driver is going on, and apply the rotation first and use drivers. Ctrl A, rotation, Ctrl A, rotation, Ctrl A, rotation, yes, Ctrl A, rotation, Ctrl A, rotation. Now we can use drivers. Now if we move this cube along the x-axis, it rotates perfectly. And because it's using the local space, even if I turn the cube like this for example, it still spins like this. Ctrl Z. Now let's select this wheel, this other wheel, and go to the Y. Oh, Ctrl Z. I add the driver to the plane underneath the wheel, because you remember when I said these wheels is not the real wheels. The real wheels is these. These wheels are basically the plane underneath the wheels. Now let's go to this wheel, other wheel. You will notice that all wheels are spinning perfectly. Like this. Now let's make a simple animation to preview our work. In the first frame, I will enter a keyframe for the location of this cube, and in frame 180 maybe, J, maybe 250, J, I, location, Control S, and press space to start the animation, and everything is perfect. Maybe the animation is too fast, maybe 500 or 600 frame is perfect. Select these frames and J, and let's preview. I like that, that's perfect, and let's move on to the next part. That would be the part which make these wheels turning left and right, like this. Let's make a controller first. Select this cube, Shift S, make cursor to selected, Shift A, mesh, maybe a circle. Let's move the origin point to this location here by pressing 7, tab, and select everything by pressing A and G, and tab back to object mode and G, and make it here. 1, G, bring it here, Control S to save the project. Now, we're using for that the copy rotation object constraint. Of course, not this one, but this wheel. Go to object constraint, copy rotation, make the arrow as a target, circle, yes, and check the X and Y because we want only copy the Z rotation. And if I now rotate it along the Z axis, the wheel also rotates like this. We don't want the wheel to rotate extremely like that. For that, we want to use limit rotation for this arrow. Now, let's press 7 and rotate this arrow. Maybe this is the limit of the wheel, the rotation of the wheel. Let's go to object constraint and use limit rotation. And let's copy this value here is the rotation of along the z-axis of this way, this arrow. Control C and make it in limit Z in max. Control V, the maximum angle, and also in the minimum angle. Control V. But we want enter minus here. Control S. Now if we rotate this along the Z-axis, it don't cross the limit. Yes, like this. Alt R. And make the same thing here in this wheel, but not this. Select it and go to object constraint and copy rotation. Make the arrow as the target and check Y and Z. Now, if we rotate this, Control S. So that's what I have until now. Thanks for watching and have a nice day or a nice night. No difference.